If you want to help Myth Vision Podcast grow, you can join our Patreon. There are different tiers, as well as help out with PayPal. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment. Dr. Price, you are of your, the father of Satan?
Yeah.
So, Satan has a father. What the heck is going on? Please help me out here.
It's a more elaborate demonology that you find in Islam and in some other religions, part of ancient lore. I don't know why anybody would come up with that, but it kind of reminds me of the mythology you find in the Acts of Pilate / Gospel of Nicodemus, where you find out that Satan is no longer in charge of hell. Beelzebub is, but they're ruling together. Where did this come from? There's no telling. In the Middle Ages, you have demonologies, dictionaries of the demons and their names and what they're good for if you summon them, like in the incredible movie Hereditary. Holy mackerel. That's a great one for Halloween. So you never know. It would be great to have a psychological study of why would you have different devils. Or in my, Holy Fable, Volume 2 for the Old Testament, Volume 1 for the Old Testament, I include a couple of books that really aren't in anybody's canon but illustrate certain points, and I consider the Testament of Solomon, which is a demonology. It has Solomon as the great exorcist, and he summons all these weird-looking demons and so forth. Fascinating. One of the Psalms mentions this. It says, "Blessed is he who takes shelter beneath the wings of Elion, and whose trust is in Yahweh," and it gives like 3 or 4 divine names. And it says you won't suffer from the arrows of Namtar, who's the sunstroke demon, or from the pestilence, and that too is a proper name. So it's like an incantation in the Bible, arming yourself with the divine names to ward off specific demons. I mean, this is much more elaborate than people think. And how much of it was believed in the time of Jesus? Well, there's some weird, funny business as to whether Satan and Beelzebul are the same person in the Gospels, and it gets strange.
I just think that statement, you are of the father of the devil. Wow. Please continue. Sorry.
You mentioned somebody that says it's a mistake to read these fragmentary New Testament hints and the like in light of something like the Book of Enoch. Well, Margaret Barker has convinced me that that's exactly what you should do, because these books that are outside of the rabbinical canon, which we have inherited as the Old Testament, preserve beliefs suppressed during the Deuteronomic reform, and that Enoch and Jubilees and all this stuff were the wild angelologies and new revelations and rewrites of the Torah and all kinds of visions and stuff, that this is based on, and the description of the temple is different in these books, and that a whole lot was cut from the texts in the versions of Deuteronomy, etc., that we have. And so she has great books like The Lost Prophet, about the influence of Enoch in the New Testament, and another one called The Gate of Heaven, which is about temple imagery in the Old and New Testaments, and how it was cut and curtailed in the Old, but that people still remembered it, and that it appears in the New Testament. Like Leviathan, the seven-headed serpent in Revelation, that's right out of the old combat myth. Anyway, and also the Older Testament is a great one that she wrote about reconstructing the fall of the angels myth, for example. She says you can tell from what does survive here and there what the original background must have been. And it's not what it looks like today. We know from the Nag Hammadi text that there were loads of different versions of the Eden story. Where'd they come from? They're just making them up? Well, they might have, but it kind of sounds like there was a wider... Or Ezekiel has an alternate version of Eden and the fall of Adam and so on. And so she gives attention to these things and says, actually, you should compare the canon with these other books. And it really throws a different light on things.
Let me ask you this about the devil, because I think that's important to understand. Everyone has this red figure with horns, and he's just a bad guy. Can you give a little backdrop on the devil? I mean, does the devil take an evolution? I know that the thought about the devil is that he was Lucifer, he was Satan. I'm not necessarily asking that. That's another video. My question is, the devil himself, what is the devil?
Well, the name or title, the devil, means the hurler, implying the hurler of accusations and slanders and all that, which really is exactly equivalent to Ha-Satan, the accuser. So it's really just Greek and Hebrew for the same thing. The adversary. Well, Satan comes up, I think the Satan, because it's not a name yet, comes up 3 times in the canonical Old Testament. And in each instance, one has to do with the sons of God getting together in the beginning of Job. And another in First Chronicles has the Satan tempting David to conduct a census to see what he can fall back on in battle instead of just trusting God. And the third one is in, I think, either Haggai or Zechariah, where there's a candidate for the high priesthood named Joshua who is controversial somehow. And so the Satan appears to accuse him before God. But the angel of Yahweh appears as the defense counselor and says, well, yeah, he's got his problems, but let's purify him and he'll be okay for the job. Well, in all 3, the Satan is not an opponent of God, but a servant of God. He's trying to see if these supposed favorites of God are what they're cracked up to be. Like in Job, God says, have you, because he's been doing his reconnaissance all over the earth. He's a special son of God. The others rule their own little fiefdoms. But the Satan is an intelligence operator, as we would say. And he's checking people out. And he says, oh, well then, have you taken a look at my servant Job? I mean, this guy's unparalleled. He worships me. He's completely righteous, etc., etc. And the Satan says, well, yeah, right. Look at the blessings you bestow on this guy. He'd be a fool not to worship you as long as the fringe benefits keep coming. And if you took that stuff away, he would curse you to your face. And so God says, all right, you're on. Do your worst, we'll see what happens. And then, of course, the first wave of COVID hits him, and he doesn't curse God. His wife, Alice Cramden, says, go ahead, curse God and get it over with. Put yourself out of your misery, because God will hit you with a lightning bolt or something. And he says, no, you speak as the foolish women would speak. Shall we not receive evil, adversity, as well as good from God? It's up to him. Okay, and then it gets, so there's another meeting on high, and God says to Job, I guess you've noticed you were wrong. I put Job through every horror I can think of, and he still holds fast his faith. And he says, well, yeah, I can tell you why that is. You didn't actually hurt him. You just took away everything. That's a blow, but if you actually strike him with disease, it's going to be a different story. Okay, go ahead. Now he gets all these boils and stuff, and finally Job is vindicated. But Satan is zealous for God's honor. He doesn't want anybody making a fool of God. Of course, this has no idea of God being an omniscient being. Nobody's thought of that yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned the thing with Joshua the high priest. This guy's not the one you want. No, he's good enough. Or with David, like Isaiah says, some trust in horses, some in chariots, but we will remember the name of Yahweh our God. And Isaiah says, don't go making alliances with Egypt and Assyria. God ought to do the trick. But he does it anyways. Okay, I wish I hadn't done that, and so on. But in every case, he's trying the hearts of men. Not a bad guy. I mean, even in 2 Samuel, I guess it is, it says that Yahweh tempts David to number the people. And it changes it in the rewrite of Chronicles where it's the Satan, but I will defend the fundamentalists on this score. It's not quite the same, but given the way Satan is mentioned, it's the only difference is it's saying God did this through the agency of his servant, the Satan. And so I don't think he's become evil yet. Now, how does he? Because in the New Testament, he sort of does. We are not ignorant of his devices, etc. But most of the New Testament has the Satan doing the same thing. In fact, we say that he's called Satan in the New Testament, but I'm not sure, since all names have definite articles. It would still be the Satan, so I don't know. But what does he do with Jesus, newly baptized, still dripping from the Jordan? The Holy Spirit drives him into the desert where he meets Satan, and he says, if you're the Son of God, well, why don't you do this? Surely you can do it. And he says, well, yeah, but you know what Deuteronomy says, and he's not going to do this. And then it's the same thing with another one. If you're the Son of God, how about jumping off the roof? And so God will protect you, won't he? And he says, you know what it says, you shall not tempt the Lord your God, etc. And three of these things, and then he leaves him alone for a while. What's he doing? Is he trying to get Jesus to sin? No, he's trying to see if he will. He's trying to say, are you really what you're supposed to be? Let's find out. And that's why the Holy Spirit sends him to the wilderness. He's not trying to get Jesus to sin. He's just putting him through his paces, like you were telling me off camera about how your dad had to go through these incredible trials to become special ops warrior and so forth. Not everybody can do it, so you try them. How about at the Last Supper in Luke 22, where Jesus says, Simon, Simon, Satan has demanded his right to sift you all like wheat. And you're not going to come out too well, but I have prayed that you may be strengthened when you return to God, and lead the rest of them. Why has he demanded his right? Because that's what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to test these people to see if they're worthy. In the book of Revelation, what do they call Satan? They say the accuser of the brethren has been cast down. That's what he's supposed to do. And they withstand his accusations because they have the courage of martyrdom and the shed blood of Christ and all that stuff, right? So where does the evil Satan come in? Only when he's combined with other ancient evil figures, like he is made into Leviathan in the book of Revelation, the chaos dragon, who originally had nothing to do with the Satan. He is combined with Beelzebul, who was an exorcism god of the Sumerians, and he was the prince of demons, and that's why when Jesus binds him, he can free his captives. He's overpowered him, which is what exorcists did. Jesus was a magician. They weren't ashamed of that in the early days. But the biggie, I think, is Ahriman, the evil anti-god of Zoroastrianism, which became a huge influence on Judaism. And Ahriman was like a device of theodicy. You want to explain the origin of evil without attributing it to God. And in Zoroastrianism, that wasn't a problem. You traded it for another one. You said that God would have stopped evil by now if he could have done it. But he can't do it yet. He's got a real fight on his hands against Ahriman. Now, eventually he'll win, but he can't just do it right now. And so he's not all powerful. Well, I'd rather say that than that he's allowing evil and doesn't give a damn. Well, in Judaism, they said, okay, well, let's make Satan into Ahriman, basically. He's the origin of evil, but it didn't really work because they couldn't allow that there was another God who was as old as Jehovah, but on the other side of the coin. So they said, well, okay, he's the chief fallen angel. And of course that ruins the whole thing, because why did God allow him to fall? Isn't God still responsible for evil? But that seems to have been the point. So when the Satan is melded with Beelzebul, not quite the same as Beelzebub in later demonology, and Leviathan and Ahriman, then he becomes the adversary of God. And in 2nd Enoch, we have a version of his name we don't see before, Sethanael, enemy of Elohim. He's the enemy of God. He wasn't before. And so that's what passes on into Islam, Christianity, and Judaism.
Wow. There's a lot there.
You know, I'd like to say to all the kids at home, if you love all of this minutiae, which is all so fascinating, get busy. I've studied this stuff for over 40 years pretty intensely. I don't know how old you are at the moment, but I guess maybe it is too late, but it's still worth devoting as much time to reading as you can.